Hi, everybody. My name is Megan Schmidt,
And I'm Chris Honest.
and our book was Humble Inquiry by Edgar Sheen. So imagine that a company has a pair of individuals who are interested in taking on a health and wellness project to implement company wide. So the pair goes to their higher ups, who go to their higher ups, and the higher ups love the idea. They think it's a great initiative to take on, and they give them approval to start a team to get the project in motion. So the pair seeks out people who live really healthy and active lifestyles within their department. The people that they find, one person has been working at the company for about 20 years and has had a lot of experience there. And then another person they find has been working at the company for 3 years, but was recently transferred to that department about 4 months ago. So the team, as that team of four, they decide that the goal of the project is to create healthy workplace habits and promote physical well-being for the employees. There's a lot of different ideas that are proposed. The most popular idea, however, is to collect data from smartwatches within each department and create incentives for meeting specific health goals for each department. The higher ups hear this idea and they love it. They think it's a great thing to start doing within the company. So when the project actually gets implemented, many departments love the idea and they really take on the challenge of living that healthier lifestyle. But there's one department, however, that their numbers are incredibly low and they pretty much fail compared to the other departments. That department was where the person who was transferred within the team had previously worked. So when we look at that situation, it leads to the question of why did that department fail when all the others succeeded? At that department, there are a lot of socioeconomic issues and challenges that those people face that were not brought up to the team. So if they had been brought up, they could have been addressed and different ideas could have been proposed and there could have been alternatives to how the project actually followed through. But whose fault was it that that department failed? Should the pair who proposed the project take responsibility because it was on them to make sure that it would work company-wide and maybe they didn't ask enough questions to that department? Should the employee who's been there for 20 years and has all this experience known about those issues and brought it up to the team and highlighted it as something that needs to be addressed? Should the recently transferred employee take responsibility because he previously worked there and he knew some of the people that had these socioeconomic issues? So overall, it comes from an issue that the important questions need to be asked, and the questions need to be asked in a way that is going to make people feel comfortable and trust that their questions asked are going to be valued by the rest of the team.
Yeah, so like Megan mentioned, there is a concept that kind of could have prevented this failure. And it's pretty simple, but it could be difficult to implement depending on your culture. And this concept is the concept of humble inquiry. So we'll quickly explore what humble inquiry is and how it's implemented, and talk about the right questions to ask and how we ask them. And also kind of touch on the effective culture in workplaces and how that affects how we ask questions, why we ask them. So humble inquiry is basically a concept of, it's a skill or an art of asking questions and kind of drawing information out of someone while building a relationship and showing genuine interest in that person and what they have to say. So it's kind of basically the exact opposite of telling someone what to do. As a leader, when you're speaking with your team or the subordinates, um, it's basically the exact opposite of just ordering people around and expecting them to follow every wish you have. So, one of the best ways to differentiate between humble inquiry and other types of questioning is to look at those other types. So, one very common type is diagnostic inquiry. So, you're basically trying to solve a problem or get to the bottom of an issue. So, you're going to ask questions, and each question may kind of build on each other. So, if you're talking to an employee or a team, you're trying to get to the bottom of an issue. So, you're just asking questions until you find the solution, but you're controlling the conversation and you are trying to get somewhere with the conversation. So you're not open. So it's not a form of humble inquiry. Another really common is leading questions or asking questions that you already know the answer to. This can kind of seem like humble inquiry, but it's not. So there is a place for it though. But if you're asking questions you already know the answer to, it could be because you're trying to manipulate or control the conversation, or it could be that you're trying to mentor someone and you're trying to get someone to answer a question in their own words. So there is that place for it. Also, it could be a form of humble inquiry if you are asking a question that you know the answer to, or you think you have the answer, but you want another opinion and you're genuinely interested in that other opinion, then a leading question could be a form of humble inquiry. But the core principle of humble inquiry or asking questions is humility. And if you're not a humble person, it's going to be really difficult for you to do this. If you're not someone that's really genuinely interested in your team, you're not going to be able to do this. So you need to first realize the interdependence you have between you and your teammates, or you and your subordinates, employees, whatever. And you both rely on each other to get the goals that you have accomplished. So you may have to look at putting together a new leadership model. If you're someone that's led by just telling people what to do all the time, and you suddenly switch and you start asking questions, your employees who are used to not having to think on their own are suddenly going to not know what to do. So it may be a process you have to slowly implement. A good way to do that would be using an after action review or some kind of review after you're done with an incident or a task or a goal. And you can sit down as a team and go through what were the things that went well, what went poorly, what can we improve on, and kind of start building a team that's cohesive. So the core of this whole thing is your attitude. And if you are someone that thinks that you can just start asking questions here and now and basically just kind of manipulate your way around, people will see right through that. So the core of this is attitude, but you may just be like a little cog in a big machine. You may be part of a big organization. And so Megan's going to talk about asking questions when you're part of a huge organization and a culture as well.
Yeah, so the other core idea on how to successfully do humble inquiry is to establish a culture where you can ask those questions. So a big issue that people face within companies and just working in a team in general is task completion rather than relationship building. So the team in our example, their goal was to promote more healthy well-being, more healthy lifestyles for their employees, which is a great goal to have. But what they didn't focus on was the relationships that they needed to do to establish between each other, where the issues that like the transferred employee might know of were highlighted and brought to the attention of the rest of the team. They also weren't focused on relationship building within their company as a whole, because those people in the department that have more socioeconomic issues, their needs weren't being addressed. But this great idea came up and everyone loved it. So the task completion had more weight than the relationships within the whole company. Another big thing and an issue that people have in establishing culture is they do more telling rather than asking. So people who have maybe more experience or a higher rank or are the proposed leaders of the team, they want to be able to get things done, and so they end up telling other people what to do. And because we need to check off everything on this list. Something that's better is asking people what their strengths are so that the quality of the work is going to be much better and people are going to be able to accomplish things that are within their certain skill set. Now, there is an element of finding a balance between that. There are some times where maybe no one has a strength that's particularly suited to a certain task that needs to get done, because at the end of the day, tasks do need to get done. But when the relationships are strong within the team, when you ask someone if they're able to do this, they know that the efforts that they put forth are going to be supported by their team. Their team's going to be able to constructively help them with completing that task and not tear down the work that they've done if it's maybe not perfect. So it's really important to be able to balance those things out and make sure that the relationships are strong and asking is being done so that people are more comfortable completing tasks and having that open communication between each other so that all issues can be addressed and not put to the back of someone's mind. So when we look back at that example that we proposed to you guys, if the person who had been transferred felt comfortable enough with the team of people who, one, proposed the project and two, had all this experience within the company, they might be able to voice their issues or concerns that they may have. And maybe like a budget could have been proposed where people could have received a smartwatch had they had known that this was going to be an issue. And the project altogether would have been more successful as a